happens when a family knows about type, but the teachers at school don't know about type? How does that conversation go?
Well, you coach the parents on how to help the teacher learn about the differences. And if you go in with, my child needs, my child is, they're probably not going to hear you as well. But if you do say things like, I found a question I asked my child really helped me with his homework, and I don't know if that same question would help you. But I asked them to just fill in the blank. When I get stuck on my homework, it really helps me if you... And so I don't know, if you tried that at school, when you get stuck on an assignment, it would really help me if you let him fill that in for you. So instead of teaching them all about type at first, I'm going to teach them specific strategies that are going to work with that child. And then when the teacher comes back and says, boy, that idea really worked, or oh, that backward planning really worked with this person, or helping them with the spot to go rug really helped that person, then I'll say, oh, it's just based on a theory that's just been wonderful for helping adults and children find their best way for getting through the life. It's called type. If you ever feel like reading more about it, I can help you with it. So instead of jamming it down their throat, you teach it through the strategies, and then you go to the theory, versus let me tell you all about the theory first. That's my opinion.
Well, what I was going to ask you is, how early can you see type in children?
Well, I am doing research that we can document differences at 9 months. I think you can see them prenatally sometimes. I know you can see them in infancy. We just haven't always had good definitions so that they're not processing. For instance, we always say that a thinking child is logical and reasonable. Well, the logic of a 4-year-old is not the same as the logic of an adult. But there is a characteristic of the T child, which is a love of independence, and I have to do it on my own. That seems to be present from the moment they can utter a sound, not a word, a sound. But that love of mastering world, of being in charge of me, seems to be present in our T kids from a very young age, as well as the relationship draw for the F kids. So people say, well, they don't know how to tell us that's their type. I said, that's true. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But it exists from unconscious drives. So they don't know about differences. They only know what way makes most sense to them. But for a parent who has a T child, they will get annoyed sometimes when they're helping their child and they start to help the child and the child is invested in that help, and then all of a sudden they go, okay, leave me alone, I got it. And the parent goes, no, let me just help you finish it. No, I got it, leave me alone. And they'll be like, now go away. And all of a sudden it's like, here we started out working so nicely together, now they don't want. But if a parent has a T child, they should go in with saying, let me help you as far as you need my help, and when you say you've got it on your own, you signal me and I'll be done. But remember how sometimes when you have racers and you have pacers, and the pacer kind of comes in and helps for a while and then leaves, and comes in and helps for a while and leaves. If you need me to come back in, just give me a signal. So you get a family agreed upon signal about when you leave me alone and when to have them come help me. Because a lot of times the child will think I can do it on my own, but run into another bump. And they don't want the parent coming in and going, see, if I'd stayed here, you wouldn't have had that bump. We want them to have the bump because we want them to manage their own life, manage their own energy, manage their own learning, but we want to be there to coach as we need to.
And so what you've just done is frame the language the parent can use, and which is such excellent communication, that the child then feels valued.
And empowered.
And empowered.
To be, it's his assignment or her assignment. But more than importantly to me is I can teach any parent to say, give me a signal when you think you want to handle it on your own, and give me a signal when you think you need my help again. And they can do that. They can do that right now. They don't have to study for 5 days and 10 days of theory.
So when you're watching a small child and these,
which I love to do,
which these preferences are starting to emerge, and you talked about the child with thinking preferences being independent, what about a child with a preference for feeling decision making? How does that show itself to the parent?
with a feeling child, a lot of times people get cuddly mixed up with feeling, and it has nothing to do with it. You can have a thinking child who's very cuddly and likes to hug and sit on your lap. But a feeling child gets very tuned into the needs and the emotions of the moment. So I was playing a board game with my grandchildren and their parents. So there were 5 of us. And one grandchild is F and one grandchild is T. The T child realizes he's going to lose and there's no strategy he can use to win, and is getting very upset. So he's disappointed with the game and doesn't think he wants to finish the game. So the F granddaughter starts crying. And the dad says, "Why are you crying?" And she goes, "Because my brother feels so bad." And they looked at me and go, "And what do we do?" And I say, "You honor both." You say, "Son, it's hard when you thought you had a good winning strategy and it didn't work, and you have to come up with a new plan. And it's hard to see people we love hurt." But it just shows what wonderful way you bring to the world what you notice best. So let's think of a way to help brother come up with better strategies. And let's think of a way to let sister know it's okay. When I fall down, I can pick myself back up and keep trucking. But I have to be allowed to feel badly for a moment. Life isn't about always feeling wonderful. It's about knowing that when the waves come, I have the skills and energy to handle the waves. Because everybody's going to get a negative wave. Nobody gets through life without having a problem.
Well, it's just such a lovely framework for differences, that my way may be different from your way. Both are good. And the thing is the theory says that we're born with our preferences. So therefore, in a family, you're going to have these differences, and you can create an appreciation, if not necessarily behavior change in a child. It's not to say that the same situation wouldn't happen in another game, but at least you now have a common language.
Right. But if the parent could also get to the point where they offer the child the option of self-reflection. So it could have been, so if that were me, I'd be plotting for, what did I do wrong? Or what could I notice about the way they put their pieces so that I could win next time? But you, of course, could choose another strategy. And the door is always open. Or if a child can't unlock the back door, or whatever little silly thing it is, it's like, if that were my problem, I'd probably think about getting the stool and standing on that. But I don't know. What are you thinking you might want to try? Anything other than that? So that instead of telling the child, just go get the stool and stand on it, which means you as the adult did the thinking and the child didn't have to do any thinking, which doesn't help them at all.
They had to learn.
They had to learn. But when we give them a model, which is, if this were my problem, I might approach it this way, but there's a lot of ways. Is there another way you might consider? Then you open that door to self-reflection, yet you have the hint of, no, I think I could do your way today.
So if you see children who come from a family that has knowledge about these differences, how does it play out with friends? Is the child able to say, "I need this," and communicate those differences? How does that work?
Child friend to child friend, or child friend to parents?
Child friend to child friend.
Oh yeah, that's why I say when my kids were younger, they taught their friends about type, because they said, "Hey, this is cool, some stuff about here, and this is how come we think this way, or this is how come we act this way," and you teach them to respect. The same language that I said the parent needed to do with a child, a friend sometimes needs to do with a friend. So it's like, well, if my boyfriend broke up with me, or if my boyfriend did that to me, I might want to feel like this, but I'd probably do this, but I don't know, is that something that would work for you? And all of a sudden you're, again, telling them there's another perspective, but not telling them what to do or say or think. So yes, it generalizes. And I would think if we had this for a couple generations, businesses would be lauding the idea that they no longer have to do as much training on team building.
Well, learning how to appreciate each other, and we all intuitively know, whether we know something about type or not, that there are definitely differences in how we deal with situations, how we deal with people, how we organize things. There are these differences. So ultimately, as children, if children can learn about it early in life,
Yes.
then that knowledge just carries forward until you get into a business situation
Exactly.
where you can say, this is how I like to do it, or maybe you're doing it in a particular way that we could work more cooperatively.
And whether it's in the family or whether it's in business, there are going to be people who aren't functioning based on type.
Yes.
They're running by a different set of rules, laziness, something else.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, you don't want to tolerate it. So you do have to give the parents enough information about the differences so that they can sort what is just a stylistic way that they're approaching the task.
This is just
from
a
not
preference,
doing it.
one, like being right-handed and left-handed, one preference over another.
But I can still maintain my standards. I can still maintain my expectations. So if the work is due at noon, it's due, whether you're 45 and in the office or 5 and in kindergarten. It's the
So
same.
it's not necessarily your ability or your intelligence.
Nothing.
It's just how you approach things and find that energy, or how you look at it. But it does give you a vocabulary to explain how people are different from one another.
And to appreciate that difference. Because there are stages in this developmental process, and the young child is just unconsciously driven. They have to be who they are. And then they discover their rules of society. What am I supposed to be doing? And then they discover, hey, I'm pretty cool. I'm pretty cool. You're not me, and I don't want to be you because I don't like your way. You're okay for you, but I don't want to be you. But that's not a valuing of the difference. That's a tolerating that you don't have to be like me to be cool. But then the last stage is when it says, not only do I see that you're different, but I see the contribution that your difference can offer that mine doesn't give me as easily, and I crave being associated with it. But that's a learning process that comes from childhood through to adulthood, and it doesn't happen by magic. It's not a cognitive thing. It is an experiential developmental piece.
So it's really a maturity thing also, that as you learn that with every preference there's a strength, and there's a downside too. And so if you and I have a different preference, then together we can be better than just by ourselves in some instances.
If we use our energies wisely, yes. You know, if we use our energies to try to control the other person and reshape them, no. But that's just that mutual kind of respect that can come.
So you've really spent a good part of your life in working with children and type in schools, and certainly with your own family, but it sounds like it's just opened up a whole way to view the world that gives people insight about being better, I guess is the phrase that comes to mind.
Well, I guess my natural type said the energies and contributions to this world had to focus on relationship development, and type was just a powerful tool to allow that to happen.
So when people are just beginning to learn about type, and when we started talking, you were talking about going through a certification program. So in order to learn about type, all you really have to do is, as an adult, take the MBTI assessment, or as a child, take the MMTIC assessment, so you can learn your type. But that's really just the beginning of the journey for a person individually. But if someone wants to use the MMTIC professionally or with others, maybe not even in a professional situation, maybe in a family situation, then there's a certain set of things that you have to learn, and that's done through the MMTIC certification program.
Right. Well, you want to transmit correct information. So there are some places out there, websites that you don't have to have anything verified to put it on the web. You can. So you'll see things like J's are neat and P's are messy. And that really isn't descriptive at all. It isn't at all what was described in terms of understanding. It's whether I keep my options open or whether I like a planful approach to life. But if you don't know that, you'll accept what you see written as, oh, okay, well, that's not, neat and messy are not two opposite goods. One is good and one is not good.
Right.
And the thing about type is they're always two opposite goods. So helping parents be able to sort through all of the information that's freely available versus what they might have to purchase, but the quality could be quite different.
Mm-hmm.
And that having a program that is endorsed says that I've scanned it to make sure that it is true to the integrity of the theory, true to the integrity of the mission, which is to improve relationships, and is embedded with strategies that are going to help you use it effectively. So you don't just read about somebody, but you know a tool for interacting with them better.
Well, this has been a great conversation about, how to use type with families, and we didn't quite get as much into school, but what applies for families also applies for
very often
schools. So, well, thank you. We're so happy to have you here in Gainesville with us.
Thanks.